What's up, Internet? This is Rambling Josh, and you're watching another episode of Let's Play Fire Emblem. Today we have the finale. We take on the dragon. This is it. This is what everything has been leading up to for the entirety of the game. This behemoth. There's also a bunch of guys around the edges here, but they're kind of trapped, and there isn't a whole lot we can do about them. This guy's in a... Oh, this guy's a sleep staff, okay. I mean, we can try and kill them with long-range attacks, I guess. Like, I could try and take these guys out with bolting. Which is probably a good idea. I'll probably do that. Kill these two up here, at least. These guys down here, I don't really care about. They're honestly just here kind of as an annoyance. So anyways, more to the point. Obviously, we have Mr. Dragon here, and he is quite a formidable foe. He does not move at all, but he's interesting. For one thing, his stats are kind of ridiculous for the most part, primarily defense and resistance. So, actually, I want to check something. So we could do some good damage with Armads here. That's actually quite a lot of damage, a lot more than I would have expected. And I guess we could deal damage with the... As long as you pierce his defense, you could do damage. But doing more than 40 damage is a bit of a high task. I don't know where I was going with that. It's not easy to do. I guess Dart might be useful, but ultimately, when you're attacking this dragon, there are two ways to go about it. The most obvious is using the legendary weapons. They're designed to kill dragons, and they can do that just fine. I don't think they ignore the dragon's defense. I think they ignore like half of it, maybe? Let's see. So, he would do 47 damage. So if it ignored half, that would be 47 minus 20. So not quite half of it. I don't think Lynn is especially good at killing this fellow. I could do 4 times 0. Sulcati, yeah, she's not especially useful, but she can do damage. And then of course there is Luna, which will also be useful. So I guess it's ultimately down to Athos and Hector to do all the damage here. However, the dragon's abilities themselves are not to be trifled with. So if we look at the Flame Tongue here, as it says, there is no protection. So he doesn't have an especially high amount of attack. I'm not sure where it's all coming from, honestly. That says 27, but he has 37 attack, which is appropriate because that is how much damage he does. Every time. Exactly. Every attack that he does exactly 37 damage, no matter who they're attacking. And I'm pretty sure it always hits as well. So that's intriguing. And one thing to note, actually, is the fact that if you are playing on hard mode, this actually does 40 damage. Which is a small difference, and he's actually he's slow enough that he's probably never going to double attack anyone, so that's good. But doing 40 damage, it basically, as long as you have more than that amount of health, it doesn't make any difference. So I guess Nina wouldn't be able to attack him; she would die. But more to the point, Athos cannot have more than 40 health. So using him against the dragon on hard mode is pretty much out of the question. Now, the last thing to point out is the fact that this dragon, as you might have noticed, he has a range of 3. So that makes things a little bit complicated. So what all this means is that the primary way of dealing with him, because we don't even know how much health he has at this point, he has a ridiculous amount. What we end up doing is basically we run in with a character, attack the dragon, then we use one of our mounted units to rescue that character, move him back, and then heal him. and then repeat that. So that is what we are going to do. But first, we are going to have Nino kill this fellow here with the sleep staff. It's not especially important that we do so, because we could just move out of their range and they wouldn't be able to do anything, but I'll be a little bit more comfortable if they're out of the way. Also, I'm very curious whether you can counter a bolting tome with another bolting tome. So anyways, 1, 2, 3. Just kind of move my characters into position a little bit here. I'll be glad when the other guy over to the east there is dead and I can spread out a little bit more. 1, 2, 3. It's honestly kind of hard to judge how far away 3 spaces actually is, because, like, I'm so used to dealing with attacks that are 2 squares away. It's like you get accustomed to seeing how far that distance is, and then 3 squares away is just, like, totally different. So it would appear that bolting cannot counterattack another bolting. I must admit that I'm quite disheartened by this fact. Oh well. Down you go. It's also kind of ridiculous that I'm double attacking with a bolting. Like, you're never supposed to do that. Bolting is not a tome that you attack twice with. Like, it's got 20 weight. That is ridiculous. Even with 6 constitution, that gives me a weight penalty of 14? Come to think of it, I guess that only brings my speed down to 12. How much speed do these guys have if I can double attack them? Good lord. Okay, anyways. Let us set things up here. So first things first, I want to kind of establish the safe zone, so to speak. Just for my own benefit. I want Hector to be over here. And I guess I'll have Athos down here. Okay, so I need a healer. So Nino can serve as my healer down here. Sarah can serve as my healer over here. I'll get everyone else out of the way. I'm kind of curious. Like, I kind of want Dart to stick around because he could actually deal damage, and that's intriguing to me. So I guess everyone else who is here should be in the area. Okay, let's get things started here. Bring out Dead Ahmeds. Well, that's a dragon. Is it gonna do that ridiculous intro every single time? My axe is made for slaying your kind. And he is into numbers that we can actually see. So, let's get Hector out of there. I guess Raven cannot take him. Can no one else actually pick up Hector? I'm sure Dart probably can. No? Really? That's kind of silly. Anyways, let's attack with Athos. I guess he is going to do that ridiculous intro every single time. Luna is ridiculous. Okay, rescue Athos. Now surely someone else can grab Athos. Because if I am able to drop him, that means that he can go immediately next turn. Yes, let's use bolting on the dragon. Actually, I'm pretty sure I probably can't heal 37 damage with a heal staff. Not quite. Okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna wait then. It's a good thing he doesn't have any sort of, like, healing aura or anything like that. So heal up Hector. And you know what? Oh, I can't go again this turn. I guess I could just play with... No, let's not do that. Even if I gave Hector another turn, he would be stuck in the range of the dragon for that turn. And he's probably just going to kill the dragon, but ultimately, there is like a 9% chance of his attacks missing. So, let's not take that chance. Actually... do this, then Hector can get the support bonus with Eliwood. So, finish him off. And I don't think this guy gives experience, which is a little bit unfortunate, because if it did, then Hector would get up to level 20. And that just would satisfy my own... I don't know if I would call it OCD, but it's like... I just want everyone to be level 20. Is that so bad? Is that so wrong? That's a dead dragon. That was actually a lot easier than I expected. I guess I've never had someone... I don't think I've ever had Hector have enough speed to actually be able to double attack the dragon. Usually the legendary weapons are so heavy that the only people who can double attack them are the ones who do not have enough strength to do a significant amount of damage. Eliwood? Why is everyone all concerned about Eliwood? So this is weird. In this scene, I have control over the text, but I don't have control over its speed. That's weird. Oh no! Well, you have been alive for like thousands of years, have you not? Sleep. I guess now that Nurgle is gone, it's okay for him to leave. At least until the next threat pops up. So what lies waiting for us in the future? Well, that's unfortunate. So there is another conflict coming up. Always in Burn. And he's, of course, talking about the plot of the previous Fire Emblem game, which is actually like the sequel to this one. Like, I guess this one, Fire Emblem 7, Blazing Blade, Rekken no Ken, whatever you want to call it, is the prequel to Fire Emblem 6, Fuen no Tsurugi, the Sealed Sword, which we never actually got in North America. So, yeah. That's unfortunate. So, yeah, about that time when I killed you, let's forget that ever happened, okay? What do you have to apologize? I killed you! I'm pretty sure Eliwood's the one who should be doing the apologizing here. Oh, yeah, no, I guess that's a good point. If it wasn't for her, Nergal would never have gotten that powerful. I kind of forgot about that. Stupid dragons. Why you gotta be so naive? But it wasn't home that you were going to, were you? He certainly was a devious fellow. Not a bad villain, honestly. Although, well, I guess there's a decent amount of interaction between the villain and the good guys. It could have been a little bit more. He wasn't really personified as well as he could have been, but they did a pretty good job of making his intentions and his past very clear. Well, he's not, so there. I guess if that was the case, then none of this would ever happen again, would it? Well, I don't know, maybe it would be more likely for it to happen. Because the whole point of this game was Nergal wanted to summon dragons, whereas if the dragons were already here, then he wouldn't need to. Why is the gate still open anyways? Nergal's dead. I never want to see you ever again. That can't be! Goodbye. Leave now, please. Leave. Leave. Go away. I get the point. You're leaving. I understand now. Why does this scene have to be so long and slow? Wait. If there are humans over there, then what's the difference between living in that world and living in this one? I don't understand. Goodbye. For real. This time. Yeah, successful music! Home. That is where they're going. They don't look like that anymore. So, after beating the game, we get a chance to save our data as an epilogue file, and we can use that in the game's link capabilities, in the link arena specifically. Obviously, the biggest advantage to that is that without that save file, you cannot use the special weapons like the Armaz or the Rhineflesh or Excalibur or any of that stuff in the link arena. So I guess Eliwood is becoming Lord Foray. One thing that they never really... I don't think they ever really go into it in Eliwood's mode, but Hector actually becomes Lord Ostia as well. Obviously his brother dies eventually, but Lord Uther actually dies throughout the course of the game. Like I said, they don't really go into it in Eliwood's mode, but what ends up happening is that just kind of... I guess Hector's parents died of like an illness, and Lord Uther, as a combination of like the stress of ruling the most important country in the Lycian League, and I think it was supposed to have gotten the illness that his parents got as a result, that ended up killing him. So, if you recall in the chapter 29, the Sands of Time, we go to Ostia and they say, oh, Lord Uther is away for a long time, going to like treat with some whoever they said. But at that time, he's actually already dead. But he decided that he would make a point of not telling Hector this because he figured that it would distract him and Hector would have to choose between either aiding his brother or saving the world, which is obviously more important. Of course, that doesn't really end up working because Hector finds out anyways, but that's an interesting plot thread that we don't really find out about in Eliwood's mode, so I figured I would fill you in on that. So, the credits. This is where I talk about my thoughts on the game. And, in truth, I think I think Fire Emblem is an amazing game, honestly, and a lot of it is actually down to its simplicity. So if you're familiar with the Fire Emblem series and you kind of think about it, this particular game, there's actually very few mechanics in it. Like, if you think about other games in the series, they all have things like branching class paths, reclassing, skill systems, weapon forging, maybe like a traversable map, and there's a bunch of kind of silly stuff that happens in all the like Super Nintendo ones that we never got over here, but this game doesn't have all of it. It doesn't have any of that. It's basically as bare bones as it could possibly afford to be. It's basically down to choose your characters, distribute your equipment, and then control your guys in battle. It's very, very simple. And as a result of that, I think just the fact that it manages to be so good despite not having many mechanics going on for it, it's a testament to just how polished and how well balanced the game is. It's a really good game. And I don't really have any complaints about it, honestly. Wow, 1,600 turns. That's what boss abusing and, what's the word? Building support conversations will do. So I guess here now we get a little bit of a summary of every character and what happened to them. Starting from the bottom, because Marcus is at the bottom. One thing to note, I guess, is that a lot of, maybe not a lot, but no, I guess a lot, most of these characters, what actually ends up happening to them, I guess it's not in, like, reverse order, because obviously Rebecca is one of my top characters. I mean, 200 battles isn't exceptionally large, but it's definitely more than a lot of other characters, like, say, Dorcas. That's kind of interesting. So anyways, the fate of a lot of these characters is actually dependent on what supports you built. So specifically, for a lot of the characters, the males and females, if you get an A support between them, a lot of them will end up getting married. Which is not really important, and it's kind of neither here nor there, it's just kind of interesting. Wow, did Oswin really only fight 52 battles? Surely he must have fought more than that. So yeah, I guess Oswin and Sarah ended up being wed. So, what else is there to talk about this game? I mean, one of the things that I really like about this game is the fact that I feel like it kind of maintains a lot of the old school Fire Emblem spirit, if that makes any sense to you. Did Urk really not fight any battles? Surely he must have. I mean, it probably doesn't count forced battles, but still. Anyways, the thing is that ever since this game came out, Fire Emblem has been trying to kind of appeal to a little bit, like, wider of an audience. So one of the things that kind of bugs me about the series is it doesn't ruin it or anything, and it's not really that big a deal, but it just, things feel like they've gotten easier in general as the series goes on from this point. And obviously they have the harder difficulty modes, which are there for people who want the challenge, but a lot of things feel like they're kind of being dumbed down over time. Whereas this game really kind of maintains that feeling of everything is it's pretty difficult and it's kind of tense, and you have to make, it's just really important to make smart decisions, and as a result, I kind of, like, I feel like it's really rewarding when you do things well, and also I feel like it makes you feel a lot more attached to the characters. So, like, I guess one of the things that I mean is that in a lot of the more recent Fire Emblem games, most of the characters, like, there really aren't any bad characters. You can choose pretty much anyone, and if you use them properly, they'll end up being pretty good. And that's very much not the case in this one. Like, characters like Wallace or Isadora, or who else? I mean, I guess Wallace could be decent, but probably not. Why can I not think of bad characters? This is kind of disproving my point here. Renault is bad, obviously. I don't know. It's not important. The point is that not so much that there are bad characters, but, like, there's a very big difference between characters who are at the bottom and who are at the top in this game. Whereas in future games, that divide really isn't there the same way, and I feel like that's important to have that differential, because, like, on one hand, it kind of sucks if you accidentally choose a bad character because you didn't know they're bad, but I really feel like it's a big boon to be able to, like, choices to me aren't important unless you have the chance of making a wrong one. And that chance exists in these old school games, and as a result, it adds a lot of weight to those decisions, which I feel like is really important in a strategy game. I mean, to me, one of my favorite things in any video game is kind of long-term planning and then seeing that plan come to fruition. And what that means in Fire Emblem is choosing the right characters. And if it doesn't matter which characters you use, that completely destroys that whole concept. It's like, what's the point? Everyone's going to be good, so why bother choosing? The weight of your choices doesn't really matter. It's like, the difference between choosing the absolute worst team isn't that big from choosing the absolute best team. And that's very much not the case in this game. We can very clearly see that characters like Dart and Hector and Nino are way superior to characters that I was even using, like Canis and Insane. Like, they're good characters. I chose to use them, and they're still far superior to the previous characters that I mentioned. And one of the big advantages to that, I feel, is just that you get a lot more attached to those characters. Because if everyone is good, it's like, I don't really care who these characters are. They're just all kind of like faceless bad guy slaughterers. Whereas in this game, like, I feel really attached to characters like Nino and Dart. They're amazing. I love using them. I want them to survive and I want them to do well. And when that happens, it's really satisfying. And I guess that kind of comes down to more, again, Fire Emblem's simplicity. It's like, it has all this complexity wrapped up in a very simplistic package that just it only does a few things, but it does them really well. And the advantages that it gets are all like very subtle things. Very clever little subtle things. So what happened to Nino? I'm actually curious. So this is what I mean, like, I don't care about all these other characters, but what happened to Nino? I actually care about what happened to Nino. A certain ceremony? What does that mean? So I guess the only other thing to really talk about is the Link Arena. It's an interesting little feature that you can have, which, if you don't know what it is, basically, you can load up a save file, which is why we get the epilogue save, like I said, and from that file you choose 5 characters. You don't have the ability to trade their equipment or do any of that stuff, you just choose 5 existing characters, and that becomes your team for the arena. And what you can do with that is you can either form your own teams and fight against the AI against your own teams, or you can link up with other characters with a Fire Emblem game and you can battle your team against theirs, which is pretty interesting. It can be pretty fun. And a lot of people actually choose to play through the entire game with the explicit purpose of building the best arena team possible. What, did Lyn and Florina become wed? So, when it comes to the Link Arena, the biggest things to keep in mind is you have to choose your 5 characters ahead of time, obviously. And you have to obviously want to get those characters up to level 20 and probably spend as many of the stat boosting items on them as you can possible. You also want to, a lot of what you want to build your team around is supports. So, for example, a good combination is Hector and Oswin. They are both quite good characters, and they can both get an A-level support with each other. And you do gain that benefit when you are fighting in the Link Arena. And probably the most important thing that brings a Link Arena team together is the Uber Spear from Vita. Even if you're opposed to the Mind Glitch trick, Uber Spear is pretty important to any Link Arena team. Anyways, enough of my prattling on. I guess this is probably about halfway in between Fire Emblem and the previous game. Eliwood honestly doesn't look that much different. He's got a little bit more of a square chin, and he's apparently abandoned the headdress. Well, maybe if yesterday was 15 years ago. I guess when you're busy ruling the country. So, this is Roy, the protagonist of the previous game, which is the next game chronologically. You may know him as one of the characters from Super Smash Bros. Melee, although he doesn't quite look the part yet. And honestly, Roy is a little bit of a lame name compared to all the other names that they have in the Fire Emblem series. Lilina. She not gonna say anything? I like how they never actually mention who the mother of either of these children are. Because it can vary depending on supports. Pretty sure Lynn can be Lilina's mother, but not Roy's. Who we shall never mention ever again. That's what they all say. Somehow I don't think he was being sarcastic. Ha 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 ha. Honestly, that beard doesn't look very good on him. Not only is the Marquis of Ostia, he's the Marquis of Ostia, he's the Lord of the Lycian League. Please leave so I can get some work done. So, things have taken a bit of a sinister turn. Well, that's unfortunate. So I guess Zephiel is king now? I feel like the person who dies is a pretty important part to get right. It would appear so. How is she talking to them from outside of the castle? Oh, I guess they're just under an archway there. That makes sense. One of the things, actually, that, I guess they don't say it in Eliwood's mode, but in Hector's mode, they say that the axe Armads is actually cursed, and that anyone wielding it will eventually die a terrible death. But Hector takes that chance to help his friend Eliwood save the world. It's an important point to bring up because that prophecy eventually ends up becoming true. Why is Zephyl evil now? He seemed like such a nice man when we saved him. But I guess that's the end of that. It's a very foreboding ending. But I guess they have to set up the previous game? Anyways, that's about it for Let's Play Fire Emblem. So I will see you on the next game that I decide to play. Catch you later.